All right. Well, good morning, everybody. This is and welcome to the Nescoin Citizen Advisory Committee meeting. This is December 14th, 2024. Um, we we have a kind of a full agenda today. And I do have one change I'd like to propose to the agenda. And that change is, or not change, but in addition, and that is, I received a request a little over a week ago from Guy Sievert to allow 5 minutes of time for a water district report. And so we're going to allow that today. I'd like to slot that in right under the notices from Tillamook County on the agenda. Are there any other changes or requests for or additions or to the agenda for today? Okay, so without objection, we'll add that to the agenda and make note of that. That we'll do the water district report. Troy Trute, the water district general manager, will do that. We'll do that at after the notices. So first is a conflict of interest question to officers for today's meeting, where you have to indicate if you have any conflicts of interest with any agenda items today or voting. And I don't think we're doing any voting today, but I have no objections. Gary?
I have none.
And Alex?
Actually, I have
Okay.
no conflicts or objections.
And this is Alex Clark. I have no conflicts or objections.
Okay.
And Chris has none either.
Okay, thank you. Next item is the October 12th, 2024 meeting minutes. Are there any changes or additions? The meeting minutes, I reviewed them this morning. They're brief, but are there any changes, additions, or deletions to the meeting minutes from that October 12th meeting?
No, I reviewed them as well. I didn't have any changes.
Okay. Okay, hearing none, we'll approve the meeting minutes from the October 12th, 2024 meeting. Okay, moving on to notices from Tillamook County. I understand there's a couple, and I'm going to turn it over to Gary.
Yeah, we have a couple of them. One is a notice of decision on a building permit application within the Nescoin coastal hazard area. And it was actually one that we talked about in our last regular membership meeting. That's the building permit for rebuilding one of the breakers units that burned down last year. So the notice of decision was approved. So the link for that is on the front page of our website, so you can go look at the details. As with any approval, there are some limitations, but it looked like the standard building limitations that are required for any building permit. The second notice was a notice of public hearing for a building variance for resident height, exceeding residential height limitations. This is on the south end of South Beach. And that public hearing for the variance was on November 14th, but I did have the link for that, the notice back in our on our website back in October. So hopefully everybody had enough time to be able to see that notice and participate in the November 14th hearing if they were interested about it.
But Gary,
Yes.
Can I just add to that? So I was on I'm on the planning commission, and we did that hearing on the 14th. That variance request was approved. The only one from Nescoin, other than the applicant and the fire chief who attended that hearing, was the neighboring property owner who had no objection to the variance. And it just had to do with because of the slope that they were building on and their ability to be able to get access in a garage and things, and also have fire truck access is why they needed the variance. So there was really no objection. Fire chief approved it. The neighbor didn't object. So the planning commission approved that request.
Yeah, I actually live 2 blocks away from it, and when I looked at the building plans, the house basically just kind of tumbles and follows the slope of the land down, and so I think it's a technical thing about where you're considering the beginning platform or the beginning of the foundation for
Right.
the house measured up. The actual visible portion of the house doesn't stick up any higher than any other house would from the road.
Right. And of course, it has to deal with that 24-foot height limit along the ocean shore. So, which is
Right.
different than those houses that are behind it. So,
So that's all the notices we got from the county, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Gary, and thanks, Guy. Okay, we'll allot about 5 minutes or so to the Water District report. Troy Trout. Troy, if you're available, welcome to the meeting, and understand you have some updates that you want to share with us. So it's yours.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. And can you hear me?
Yep.
Everything working? All right. Okay, so I thought I'd approach this kind of chronologically. So 2022 was our last update to the NCAC. It was a pretty long explanation of everything that we'd done up to that point. So if anybody'd like to review it, I'm sure the NCAC has the recording. So as an update, everything since 2022. Well, this is not everything, but just some bullet points. In 2023, we actually made a purchase of land from Mike and Lana Kowalski through donations from them, donations that were received by the North Coast Land Conservancy, and some money from the Water District. So we purchased that 51-acre parcel. We then in 2024 have acquired through funding from a grant from the Source Water Protection from the State of Oregon's Health Authority. We've commissioned a forest management plan that covers the entire watershed. The plan, it lists out comprehensive forest description, terrain, history of the lots, soils, erosion, roads, climate of the area, and like recreational usages. Include a description of the watershed resources, assessment and protection of it, a timber assessment to know what's growing. It included some short and long-term goals, water quality and quantity goals, silviculture practices, stream buffers, harvest levels, opening sizes, tree retention, road maintenance, invasive species management, and forest chemical usage. It also included an annual budget to know what the price tag of management was on this property. Next, we just received a Drinking Water Source Protection Award from the state of Oregon last month, which is nice. The major one we've been working on very recently was completing an application for roughly $1 million in funding from the new established OWEB Source Water Protection Grant for a major purchase of watershed land. And that brings us up to our current day without taking anybody's time up. It's pretty quick little bullet point presentation. I just wanted to say, if anybody wants to donate to cause, donations are accepted through the NCLC, and every dollar that's spent on that goes to the conservation of land in the Nesquin Regional Watersheds drinking water source area. That's a mouthful. But the land east of the water plant where we collect all the water for your drinking water, that coffee right there, that Chris Silkowski had. Well, no, I don't know that Chris is at his house.
I am.
Oh, all right, winning. All right. And then if we have any more time for that 5 minutes, if anybody has any questions.
Troy, I've got a couple questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the donations, are they tax deductible? Is it a not-for-profit that we'd be donating to?
Yes, Chris.
Okay. And the second question is how many
Chris,
additional-
Chris, you donate to the, if you donate to the North Coast Land Trust
Yeah,
for land purchases within the Hawk Creek watershed in our source water area, that's how we do it to make sure.
okay,
Yeah.
great.
They're
And
not
then
for
how many additional acres are required to kind of lock in and protect our watershed?
Okay, so including what we currently need to purchase or excluding what this grant that I was just talking about wants to purchase? So-
Maybe for the audience, what is the total acreage of our watershed and what's been locked in to date?
Okay, so roughly 1,800 acres. Locked in is that 50-acre parcel. We're currently working on 121 acres. Of that 1,800, some of it is technically outside of the watershed, but it's in tax lots that would be difficult, if not impossible, to break up
Okay,
because the watershed boundaries doesn't perfectly align with these tax lot boundaries. So we would roughly have about 10% of the watershed conserved if
Okay.
the grant goes through and if we make that land sale.
Okay.
okay, thanks.
And one thing, Chris, too, the biggest portion of the land is owned by Weyerhaeuser now. And the water district was in, when the land was owned by Hancock, we were in discussions with them about purchase, and they traded it to Weyerhaeuser. So we have been in contact and discussions. Troy has been discussions with Weyerhaeuser. They are open to selling that key piece, which is mostly in the upper watershed. That's the biggest piece. That would be a huge accomplishment, I think, for us. It's going to take some money, and that's the kind of thing we're also working on as to how to do it. But they're a willing, right now they're a willing seller. So it's just a matter of making the right deal. So
Great.
Yes, they've been very reasonable too. They're willing to sell portions as well of their holdings in the watershed, not just everything all at once. So, you know, we've done a fairly good job of identifying the most important parcels and working from top down. So these parcels we've identified are the one that we just purchased, the 6,700 lot. That is where the confluence of the two branches of Hawk Creek come together and then come into one, go down past our water plant where we take in the water. Very important. These next ones that we have this grant for are contiguous. They're sitting on the northern slope of that valley, and they're all very close to each other. I mean, one is slightly askewed from the other two, but they fit together very nicely, and they're very close to our water inlet. And the most susceptible, or some of the most susceptible for development. So it would be a very good idea if we secured those. Any questions, anybody? I mean, so Guy and Alex are all very good resources for this. If anybody sees them around and wants to shake them down for information, for sure.
I just have a quick question. Is there a link to the watershed map that we could go to?
Yes, look on our website. Then So it's nescoinwater.com. In there is a section titled Watershed. And in that section, there's a map. There's a couple different documents describing a lot of information about the watershed in there as well.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Troy, I appreciate you coming on and speaking to this today. The information you gave is just great. Talking about the parcels and trying to get the most important ones and so on. So I think it's great information. So thanks for being here today.
No problem. Hope everybody enjoys their Saturday.
Yeah.
Though it's raining sideways occasionally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations on the award. Well earned.
Yeah. Yeah. Congratulations.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Troy. Okay, let's see. Next item, Chris with the treasurer's report. Chris.
Sure. Yeah, this report covers 2 months since our October meeting. At the end of October, if you recall, we had a ending balance of $566. So that's our beginning balance for December. For cash outflows, we had a check of $46 to Jeff Lindman covering a 2-year renewal of our domain name, and that was approved at the October meeting. And then we had 2 items that were previously approved because they were included in our budget. One of them is a $276 charge to Squarespace for our website subscription. In our budget, $252 was the amount that was approved. So it looks like the annual subscription fee went up a little bit this year. And then there was a $72 Google Workspace subscription also for Squarespace. And that was also approved in our 2025 budget, and the amount remains unchanged from what was approved. So that brings us to an ending balance, because we had no cash inflows, ending balance of $172. So we're getting critically low here. And any update, Mark, from the county on our reimbursement request?
No, Chris, I have inquired about that, and I just need to keep inquiring about that. Yeah, no, unfortunately, Chris, no, but I'll continue to work on that.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for the reminder.
And I don't believe we have any upcoming charges that would bring us into an overdraft position.
Okay.
For at least a few months.
Okay. And Chris, can you remind me, if you wanted to make donations to the NCAC, how would you?
Yeah, so
do
there's and Gary, maybe you can correct me. I know we used to have a donations link on our website.
Yes, I believe it's still there. I'm
Okay.
not sure the navigation to get to it, but it's somewhere in there.
Okay.
It's probably the easiest.
Okay. On the website. Okay.
All right. So that's it for the treasurer's report for December.
It's
Okay.
on your website at the bottom.
Okay. Thanks, Troy.
No problem.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, let's see, treasurer's report, executive board report, and I should have put reports because in November we had 2 executive board meetings. Both are on the on the website under the minutes, having agendas and minutes, but I'm going to be shuffling some papers here as I go through. It's been a pretty busy month in the month of November. Couple of urgent meetings were scheduled and so on, really around the FEMA issue, which we'll get to in a little bit. So the first was November 8th, and we called an urgent executive board meeting on November 8th, and it was really just to talk about the FEMA response. Our feeling about NCAC's response to the FEMA issue that was in front of the county in terms of having to decide which choice of the three choices FEMA gave the county. And we wanted to weigh in on that. And so we met on December 8th or November 8th, I'm sorry, as a executive committee. And we talked a little bit about putting together a draft letter. And in fact, did do that prior to an urgent membership meeting the next day on December 9th. So that meeting was really just a conversation amongst the executive board about what might go in the letter as a draft to present to the membership the next morning. And we did do that. And in the just looking in the minutes from meetings and the documents, that draft letter is in the meeting minutes from that executive board meeting. I think it's also in the membership meeting on the 9th. So that was the November 8th executive board meeting. We then had another executive board meeting on November 20th. And in that meeting, that was actually after the Board of County Commissioners and the Planning Commission met on November 14th, where the letter was read. And at that meeting, we talked about really two things. One was, would we submit another letter for a Board of County Commissioners meeting that was going to be held on November 27th? That was one topic that we talked about. We decided that we were not going to do that. And that was really based on being present at the November 14th meeting. The feeling that a number of us got that were present was that the county was not happy with any of the three choices and would do something different. So we did not choose to submit a letter on November 27th to the Board of County Commissioners. And they did eventually. I'll get to that in the FEMA discussion about what they decided to do. Many of you probably already know that. And then the other topic that we discussed on November 20th was a review of the NCA grant proposal. We elected not to push that forward, submit that for a membership vote, mainly because we had some questions still about the equipment and not about the equipment, but storage, our possession of the equipment and holding the equipment. And then a little bit more about getting out in front of any, not bylaws, but what's the term? Nancy, can you help?
Policies and procedures.
Policies and procedures, getting ahead of the policies and procedures that might be coming surrounding grants. So we are not submitting that for a vote. I think what will happen, I believe, is that the NCA will own that equipment and will allow us to borrow it from them. That's my understanding. So I think that summarizes pretty much those two executive board meetings. Really, the month of November was all around the FEMA issue. And that was the main topic at both of those meetings. Any questions about those?
Could I just
Go
add
ahead,
that
Nancy.
I think we decided that we may submit letters to legislators
Yeah, okay.
regarding the FEMA issue, depending on what the county decided at their meeting, and depending on whether it would make any difference. I think we're just kind of still, well, we'll wait for the FEMA update, but we authorized that based on the authorization given at the the November urgent membership meeting.
Yeah, November 9th. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Okay. If there's no other additions or questions or comments, we'll about that part of it. We'll go on to the outreach update, and this is Susan Schomburg is going to speak a little bit on the on outreach. So Susan.
Good morning, everyone, and I'll be real brief. The outreach task force is tasked with promoting membership and coordinating the recruitment of officers, but not vetting them. And upcoming in April, we have the elections will be held there earlier this year. And the expiring terms are chair and secretary. And I'm currently a task force of one. I would love to grow the task force. And I've been looking with admiration at what the community plan is doing. And they've carved out 9 neighborhoods. And they are the following: the Nescoin Village, Slap Creek, Nescoin North, Hot Creek Hills, the Hills of Nescoin, Beach Crest, South Beach, Sahalee Shores, and Valhalla. And what I would love to see happen is if we could get people from each of those neighborhoods to come forward and join me with the task force, because I think that then we would be able to really help grow the membership of the NCAC, get greater awareness, and also help in identifying people who might be interested in not only the offices that are coming up in the elections, but also subcommittees and other things that might happen. And that's basically all I have. If you're interested or know anyone who might be interested in joining forces with me, please email info@nescoincac.org and come join me.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Just to recap, I think Susan said that there's 2 positions that are going to be open. If you're interested, I think just contacting the NCAC and letting us know you're interested in a position would be a starting point. Again, the elections are going to be in April, at the April general membership meeting. And the terms start in June 2025.
Oh.
You can go 2 years.
How many breads?
And,
Loaves? Like big loaves?
hello, Nancy?
Oh.
No?
I am so sorry. I thought I had muted myself. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's go on to the FEMA update, and I'm gonna shuffle some papers here because I've prepared a few things to say about it, but just in chronological order. And there are folks. Guy is on the Planning Commission, so I'm sure, Guy, maybe when I'm done, you're welcome to add anything that you would like to add to this. But just going through the month of November, so I'm going to go through kind of the timeline and highlight a couple of things. So November 8th, we had the urgent executive board meeting, and we drafted a draft letter to the county on November 8th. We presented that to the membership on November 9th at an urgent membership meeting we called. And we talked about the FEMA, I'm calling it the FEMA issue, FEMA's, they wanted us to make choices about what we wanted to do as a county in terms of meeting their requirements. And so we shared the draft letter with the membership on that day. The membership gave us authority to draft a letter for the November 14th meeting of the Board of County Commissioners and Planning Commission, a joint meeting. We did revise that letter after that membership meeting. And so the letter that was written and submitted and read by me at the November 14th meeting was different from the one we presented on November 9th. It is on the website. It's under meeting minutes from the November 9th meeting. It has submitted letter there. I have a copy of it today. If folks would like me to read it today, I'm happy to do that. But if people don't want that read and want to look at it themselves, they can do that as well. Is there anybody that would like me to read that? Oh, okay. So we submitted that. I read that letter at the November 14th meeting. We had an executive board meeting. I talked about that a little bit. We made the decision not to submit a second letter to the county. I think for those of us that attended the meeting on the 14th of November, it seemed fairly, there was a lot of advocates that were advocating for not choosing any of the three options that FEMA gave the county, but doing something different. And we felt like the letter we submitted, and that included maybe a legal process. We felt like the letter we submitted had included those options in it. So we did not submit a second letter. And then on November 27th, the board met. And I think if you look at the tape, I was looking at it this morning and the video of that meeting. I think if you go to minute 34 on the tape, they start the discussion about a FEMA response. I don't know, it's maybe a 10-minute discussion or maybe a little longer. And basically the county chose not to choose either. They did not choose either of the three options, but their own. I was able to locate the December 3rd Tillamook headline article. And in that article, they did highlight the response that the Board of County Commissioners put in their letter. And I can I'll just read it's just a 3-line, what I got out of that newspaper article, that it says, the decision was unanimously formalized in a letter to the Federal Emergency Management Agency that informed the agency that the county will require projects in areas of special flood hazard to submit a letter from a biologist certifying that the project will cause no take of endangered species beginning December 1st. So that's the summary of the response from the county to FEMA. And that, I think, brings us up to date. Now, Guy, please, if you have anything to add to that or any comments.
Okay, I think I got it all. So at our planning commission hearing and meeting this Thursday night, we did get a report. The county did receive a response back from FEMA. And as you can imagine, the response was, given that you did not make or did not select any of the three choices we gave you, we are selecting one for you, which is the default selection, which requires a complete habitat analysis, quite expensive, whatever, for any development within special flood areas. And just to add something to this, I mean, we kind of think of, the special flood hazard area, whatever, how does it impact Nescoin? One of the things within this FEMA requirement is any development, and there's a quite broad definition of what development is, within 180 feet of any stream or wetland. So think of Nescoin, think of Hawk Creek coming through, think of the golf course. So it can pose Sutton Creek. It can pose a lot of problems for us, and the mitigation formulas are just unacceptable. So the county received that letter back from FEMA. We got a report that since December 1st, and I should have taken notes on this thinking about this meeting today, but I didn't, but this is my recollection. Community Development Permitting Office reported over 60 permit applications coming in since December 1st, and they had a huge number before the December 1st deadline. So people are being encouraged, if they have any development in mind for these areas, to submit these applications now and operate under the county's proposed regulation, which is no take of an ESA species. And I think there's like 16 different ESA species that could potentially be be
Yeah.
harmed in this FEMA decision. So I think the people who are applying for development permits are being told that, you know, this is outside of what FEMA is requiring. So they're kind of proceed at your own risk kind of thing. And then we were told that within 2 weeks, the lawsuit that's going to be filed by, oh, Mark, you remember the Friends of Wetlands, Oregon Friends of Wetlands, or something. I can't remember the exact
I don't
title
remember
of
the
the
name,
group, of which
Yeah.
Tillamook County is a part. And they're filing a suit against FEMA saying they have no authority to do what they're doing. This is impractical, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like everything else, it'll end up in a court somewhere. So that's where things are at. People are really rushing to get their development permits in, despite the warning that there could be some problem with it later on. But I think people are betting on the fact that what's FEMA going to do after the fact. So
Mhm. Yeah. Thanks, Guy. I didn't realize that that was so quick, that they responded so quick, but
yeah,
yeah,
of course.
they got right on that. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think I just add one, and the attorney, I can't remember her name, Marilyn, or
Yeah.
she has said, when at the November 14th meeting, I think she was pretty clear at saying that, look, you can choose, the county can choose a path, their own path. But what'll happen is if things get really testy with FEMA, the county they can just choose one of their paths at some point if they have to. And so I think that's a way, sort of, if it's not going to work, or it's not going to go the way the county would like it to go, then at some point the county can and might decide to just choose one of the FEMA options so that people can still get flood insurance.
Mark, we have a couple of questions. I think Troy wants to ask a question.
Okay, let's see, who is that? Nancy, go ahead, Nancy.
I think Troy was first.
Oh, I'm sorry, Troy, go ahead.
And we might have the same question. Guy, you know of any developments in Esquin that this would affect?
Well, it could, I mean, there are some empty lots that would come within 180 feet of a stream. And it's not just empty lots too. It's like if you want to do any remodeling or even put on a deck on your house, I mean, it's any project that's going to require a permit would have to come under this regulation. And that's already happened, for instance, in Pacific City. People living along the Nestucca, even simple extending their decks and things like that. So yeah, and we have flood. You can look at I don't know, Mark, if we have it on the website of the area zoned wetlands.
So Guy, we don't, I don't believe we do. I was looking this morning and I just typed in FEMA flood map.
Yeah.
And it came up. So that's
Right.
where anybody can go. And then you just type in Nesco or your address in Nesco and it'll show. So,
right. And that's within the floodplain.
Right.
But then you also have to consider this 180-foot buffer issue. And that's either side of any kind of stream or wetland. So that really does impact a lot of, especially in, both South Beach and the village.
It's a lot. Yeah. Yeah. And I would say also, I think Sarah said it, that if a part of your property is within the 180-foot boundary or the floodplain, then I believe all your property is
right.
in that.
Right.
So, okay, Nancy.
Yeah, I think, didn't she also say that if you have a stream, or if you have something that's where your property is affected by something running close, like something to do with water, or I'm probably not describing it right, but you could also be affected even if you're not inside the floodplain yourself. But
yeah.
What I wanted to ask is whether, Mark, or Guy, have you heard anything about whether these letters would be helpful to send to legislators at this point? Now that we're joining in the lawsuit, would it make any difference at this point to send letters, to legislators about the issue?
You know, and I have to be, I mean, I don't want, as an individual here, speaking as an individual, this issue, and not a member of the Planning Commission, but this issue clearly is a national issue. And, you know, the governor, and legislators of Oregon have already weighed in. I don't think there's any convincing that we need, this is my opinion, that we need to do. I mean, Governor Kotek wrote a letter to FEMA, which was ignored. So my guess is that any kind of letter to, or any contact at all with, you know, with our congressional people, and you know, this covers, I'm trying to think of 30 counties, Mark, something like that. I mean, it's not just
Yeah.
Tillamook
Right.
It's
County.
all but-
It's
All but the 7 southeastern.
Yeah.
counties.
exactly. So it's an Oregon issue, and so it's not just our own particular congressional delegation, but yeah, I think anything on the federal level. As Mark and anyone else who was at that meeting on the 14th, of the county commissioners and planning commissioners can attest that there are a number of people there who felt that once the new administration came in January, the federal administration, that things would change. You know, FEMA would be told to back off and whatever. And so I think people are putting hope in that. But I think one thing that Commissioner Olson pointed out was that the actions that are being required here are court actions, required by court decisions, not by congressional, not by executive branch, whatever. These are court decisions that we're being required to respond to. So his opinion is that no change in the administration is really going to make that much of a difference. We'll see. I think who knows? That's out of our hands, but.
Yeah, and Nancy, I can say that I know you've been in contact with Sarah a little bit, and I have as well. We didn't have our CAC meeting this month in December. And I haven't heard back from Sarah. I'll send it again and see. I think she's just so busy with everything here that she just hasn't had time. But
Yeah,
so I don't have.
It might be worth, Mark, putting the county's letter
to
FEMA on our website.
Okay.
Make it
Okay.
easy, accessible, rather than having people go through the county website.
Okay.
And also the letter that we've received back from FEMA, which is quite brief.
So she has those. Yeah, I guess I'll contact her and ask her to send them to me then, or.
I have the letter we wrote to FEMA. I could send that to you. And
Okay.
I don't have the letter that FEMA, all I knew was what
Okay.
FEMA wrote back.
Okay.
I don't have that letter.
Okay, if you can send the letter that
Sure.
we wrote to FEMA, we can get that on the website.
Sure.
Thanks, Guy.
And I wonder if you could post links, Gary, to the 2 meetings that the county held, the November 14th meeting and the November 27th meetings. Because they're hard to find on the county site.
Oh,
Yeah, and
The
the November 20
videos,
yeah. Do you have ready links to them?
me,
Yeah.
I have one to the November 14th, but I haven't found the one to the November 27th. It's probably there. I haven't looked very hard, but
And
Yeah, I
it's,
looked
I
this-
can look, Gary.
Okay. Yeah. Just you mail it. I'll mail it to me and I can put them up.
and the,
Okay, thank
and
you.
the November 27th meeting is not much. I mean,
Right,
it's just,
right.
it's just a formality. Really, the
Right.
14th and the
Right.
discussion that occurred
Yeah.
then, and the presentation by the attorney.
Yeah.
Those things might be worth listening to.
Yeah, definitely the first probably 45 minutes and the last half hour. It's a long meeting, but those were very informative to
Yeah.
listen to the attorney at the beginning and Sarah, and then
Yeah.
at the end where they had the discussion.
Yeah, the community's comments I thought were really interesting, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. but
including
it's
the person who fell over my desk.
it's a long meeting though, but it is informative. Yeah.
And Mark did a great job presenting too, so
He
on his
did.
vacation.
He did.
Okay, all right. Well, okay, we'll try and get the letter up. The letter we submitted is on our site. Let's see, more to come on this is all I can say about that. But
So we'll hold off then on letters for now then.
I think so until we
Great.
hear.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. We'll move on to Randall and an update for the community plan. Randall's here.
I don't see him as a participant.
Oh,
Mark,
okay.
so I don't think he's attending.
Okay. All right. We'll have to.
I can give a quick update.
Okay.
Great. Just we've been meeting every 2 weeks. We met a week ago Monday with Sarah, who presented us with as you know, one of the things we're dealing with is a Senate Bill 406, which calls for an increase in housing density, and it applies to because of Tillamook County managed to get this that applies to unincorporated communities in Tillamook County. So we are unique in that sense in the state. So this middle housing ordinance or model code is being applied to us, and as the community plan steering committee, we are trying to work with the community development to figure out how these ordinances fit within our community plan and the changes that we're going to have to make. So we have a copy of the model ordinance. Also, community development hired consultants to assess the housing regulations in the unincorporated communities. So we have the one for Neskowin, the assessment, and what is current and what the consultants are recommending for changes in each of the R1 and R3 and RR zones, which pretty much covers all of our residential areas, and also by lot size. So that's another part of this recommendation. So we're working our way through it. We're meeting Monday to go over how our interpretations of this model code is, and the changes that are being recommended, and what we see as how it would fit within Neskowin. So that's we've been spending a lot of time the last week and a half looking through this document, these documents rather, and so that's going to be on Monday. It's going to be an interesting meeting. So essentially, that's where we are. We've the community plan is really taking shape, generally thanks to the Tom site, and we're kind of coming up with a more of a finalized draft, all except for these ordinance changes. I think that's right now is really our biggest challenge, is how do we incorporate these changes that are being directed our way into what we feel should be the Neskowin community. So that's where we're at.
I have a little bit to add to that. I didn't attend the last meeting. I was in Texas at the time, but I did get the document, the recommendation. I'm going to characterize it as being somewhat opaque.
The model code, Tom, or
the consultants.
Oh, the consultants report, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm as we speak, I'm untangling that, and I'll have an analysis of that ready for the meeting on Monday. So if you want to find out what the bottom lines are, what we think the bottom lines are on 406, we should have a good discussion on that.
Yeah, we already had some questions about some of the lack of clarity in that consultant's report.
Yes, I would have been embarrassed had I authored it.
Yeah.
So, so I would say thank you to the community plan committee that's meeting. It's I've attended a few meetings. I'm planning on attending on Monday, and you guys are your group is doing great stuff. Really good discussions about stuff, and how do I say that? It seems like you're throwing a curveball almost sort of every month, and you're
Yeah.
doing really well with it.
Yeah,
So
pretty much.
yeah, so thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. I find it really interesting what you're doing. It's really good work. So thank you. Okay, all right, community plan. I guess we're on to the bylaws update, and that will be Nancy.
Hey, hi, everybody. I'm sorry for the interruption earlier. My husband was back from the farmer's market with a wrong order. Okay, olive bread. Anyway. Uh, so I have a very short report. Our committee, which consists of Wyatt Angelo, Michael Beachley, Tom Sipe, and Susan Schoenberg, all of whom I see today here. You can join your videos if you'd like, people. Our terrific committee has been working hard on the policies and procedures, which we have now tentatively renamed policies, procedures, and references, all fall. And this is a brand new document, so it's been taking some effort to figure out how we're organizing everything. But our fabulous editor, Tom Sipe, who we now share with the community development plan subcommittee, has been doing a great job of organizing us, and it's evolving. So basically what the policies, procedures, and references are is to give more detail and information about the bylaws, which we completely redid last year, as you may recall. So it includes job descriptions, it includes more information on, say, voting, just all sorts of more detailed kinds of things. So we plan sometime around February, March-ish of next year to go through and do feedback sessions like we did with the bylaws, and let people know, have a chance to be able to provide input like we did before. It's easier to approve policies, procedures, and references. We can do that without having, I don't believe, to go through the county attorney formally. It can be changed much more easily than bylaws. We will be, of course, submitting through Sarah, and she could decide if she has to take anything to the county attorney. But it is easier. It doesn't mean it's not important. These kinds of things are quite important, but you may have noticed if you went through our feedback sessions, there were a number of things that we said, well, we'll send those to the policies and procedures area to further delineate. So more to come. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Or subcommittee members, would you like to add anything? Okay.
The only thing to add is that the PP&R is basically just details and things that were just too likely to change to put in the bylaws. The basic philosophy is the bylaws remain pretty constant, and any tactical changes get reflected in the PP&R.
Yeah, thank you. And we may actually have to go back and do a little tweaking of the bylaws as a result, but those should be minor. It won't be a wholesale rewrite like we did last year.
Yeah, I would just add that it seems like I'm glad that you're doing this. The bylaws are really solid, but I think this year we've seen a need to clarify some things, if you would. Some things have come up, and so again, just looking forward to the bylaws committee sort of giving us a good roadmap in terms of officers, in terms of how to follow, procedures to follow when things come up, certain things come up. It'll just be great. So thank you.
I think it's fair to add too that to underscore what Tom Sipe said, that the bylaws are solid. They don't change without a lot of input and change with the membership. But the PPNRs are a document that's always growing. because we come across new ways of looking at things, new policies that need to be written, new issues that rise that we can't really anticipate ahead of time. So we're doing the best we can so that, you know, when that document does come out, then it's a beginning. That's all it is, a beginning, and we can work from there.
Yeah, thank you. Very good additions. In fact, we may get to a point where we start having multiple, where we actually take votes on in membership meetings about different parts of the policies, PP&Rs. So at one point we looked at having job descriptions, just as an aside here, we looked at having job descriptions as a separate section for kind of committee positions, and then it would be PPJNR, and it was sounding like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So we kind of backed off. Tom put that back into a section of the policies and procedures. So enough said, we're getting into the details here, but it's
Guy
been
had some-
it continues to be a great committee to work with, and
Yeah.
we appreciate the input of Mark has been attending a lot of our meetings. Gary's attended some, and also some community members like Tom Brahadich and others have been attending, and we appreciate everybody's input.
Nancy, just can I have just a general comment? You know, as we, even in writing the community plan, and as we think about it, I mean, it's been 23 years since we last addressed this plan. And so, you know, one of the challenges I think that we face as a committee and eventually as a whole community is we're probably not going to be addressing this again for another 20 years. So how do you look out 20 years, given kinds of even projecting from the current circumstances? And, you know, you look at what's happening with Tillamook County, their budget crisis that they're in, which is, I don't, you know, unless there's some kind of miracle change from the legislature or whatever, they're going to be fighting this. We're looking at reduced county services. We already have those. As you know, our roads aren't maintained, our beach access points aren't maintained. Other services are being reduced. You know, talking to some state people just in this last week, staff is being reduced, seasonal staff is being cut, budgets are issues. So when you, one of the things that I believe one of the changes that's occurred in Nescoin since the 2001 plan approval is the CAC, which started in its current form in 2006. And I think what's happening with the bylaws committee, I think with the committee structure and whatever, strengthening the CAC is really critical, not only for now, but as we look ahead and some of the challenges that this community remains. One of the things that, and Tom, you're free to comment on, one of probably the most important thing in our community plan is the vision and values statement. It's kind of the only thing we can really kind of say, this is for sure, this is what we believe. And we've gone through a long process to get that point. There's going to be a lot of other changes occurring over the next 20 years. But keeping to those vision and values is going to be critical. And the CAC, in my view, will be the focal point for which kind of guides that. And so as you think about bylaws, it's not just for today, it's not for yesterday, it's really for the next 20 years of our future. Now, I know they can change. They're always being revised, but we have to keep that in mind.
No, thank you, Guy. You're absolutely right. And it is one way that the policies, procedures, and references will help. They're more easily adaptable and changeable as the needs change. But just a throw out to for the community plan, we use the values, some of the values and vision statements in the letters to the county, and that was very helpful. It fit really well with the FEMA information to be able to have that.
I think one of the great important things about PP&Rs is that not so much the details of any of the policies, but the fact that we're having the conversation.
Yeah.
And talking with each other in the community and coming to agreements and understandings and so on. So I say that just to underscore our Nancy's invitation for any and all of you to tune in and participate and share to whatever extent you will. I think, Guy, your point about 20 years down the road is a very, very well put point, and we need to keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you. I would just add that I think the bylaws and the community plan steering committee, I thank both of those groups for the work that they're doing. It's just it's very impressive how folks have come together and volunteered their time and their efforts and their thoughts to well, to bylaws and the community plan steering committee at this point, but members coming to meetings, it's really nice to see. And I think I'm very appreciative of it. It's for me to be in this role, it's pretty easy right now. I just try and manage the meetings. And so I'm very, very, very appreciative of the work that's going on. So thank you.
So is that an advertisement for candidates for?
Yes.
chair?
Yeah.
This is an easy job. All you got to do is run
it's
the
an
meeting.
easy job. You just have to, I mean, really, you guys are just doing fabulous work. I mean, honestly. So it's easy.
Well, we
So,
appreciate your support very
Yeah.
much.
okay, let's see. There's one question here maybe before, and then we'll do public comment, but well, this is public comment time, but Harvey Rubenstein to everyone, is NCAC a 501c3 entity? I don't know the answer to that. Chris?
No, we're not. We're
No, okay,
we're an entity of the county.
okay,
So
okay.
Yeah, we're not an independent organization. We live by the will of the county.
it's
Okay,
a county board order we could send you if you'd like, but we're not able to become a 501c3.
that's right. Okay. All right. With that, any public comment? Don't see any hands raised. Okay. With that, I'm going to wish everybody a happy holiday, and hopefully you'll enjoy some relaxing time in the weeks ahead, and we'll see everybody back here at the turn of the year in 2025. So have a great holiday. Thank you, everyone.
Right.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Mark.